faith is a fairly loaded word, but it's a beautiful word, actually. I like to think of it when we come to practice Zen as a suspension of disbelief. So we've tried all this stuff. We've read books, and we've gotten degrees, and we've gotten the new car, and we've had marriages, and we've ended marriages, and we've had children, and they've grown up and left, and we've done all this different stuff, and we've attained that. And so, but still, that thing, that root, is still it's thirsty. We're still running up trying to resolve each thing by itself. And so I think if you have a suspension of disbelief about this practice, it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to necessarily believe anything that I hear from the Buddha or from Zen Master Seung Sahn or from anybody at the Cambridge Zen Center, but let me just sit down and try it. Let me see what happens. That was what the Buddha did. He did all that stuff. He ran around and tried all this different practice. And then he thought, you know what? I'm just going to sit right down here and I'm going to see for myself. And take away everything. I'm going to see for myself. Breathe in, breathe out. That's a kind of faith. So it starts out as a suspension of disbelief. And it's like, all right, let's see what happens. Half an hour. I'll give this thing half an hour. Let me see what happens. All right, I'll give it another half an hour. Give it another half an hour. And something really interesting starts to happen. Suzuki Roshi talked about it. It's like when you're walking in the fog. He said practicing Buddhism is like walking in the fog. You don't really feel that you're getting wet. But after an hour or two, you're sort of saturated down to the bone. You haven't even noticed what's going on. And I think that that becomes a certain kind of trust, because what happens when we let everything come down and rest, our own true nature, which has always been ours, it's always inherent in all things, it's there always. It's been covered up by all of this stress and distraction and machinery. When we let the machinery rest, what happens is our Dharma mind, our true self, you can call it whatever you want. Your God nature, your Buddha nature, your enlightenment nature. It doesn't matter what you call it, because it's before all of that. What happens is, it's kind of like, oh, somebody let me out, Somebody kind of let me come out into the light so that I can be felt and seen by the person who's practicing. So as we sit and we let everything rest, this clarity, our own natural nature, begins to function in very much the same way as a dog. As a dog functions. When you see a dog, it never meows. Never! I always say that. It's like a broken record. When you see a lemon tree, it never makes a cherry. Never. Right? Dog does its job. Water flows to the sea. Lemon tree makes a lemon. Everything's functioning just perfectly. And that's what happens to us. And so then that faith or trust in the moment begins to grow a little bit more as we begin to recognize that which we already have, which all of us already are complete. Buddha said, without cultivation, already you are complete. Which is true. But we're so thick-headed, we have to cultivate ourselves somewhat to realize this without cultivation. I think we have to actually clear away some of the habit form of the things we do to get in the way of that. If you look around on this planet, our teacher used to give, essentially the same Dharma talk every single time for 45 years. He always started out the same, and then it might take a different course based on the questions. But he would always say, human beings, number one, bad animal. He'd say, everything in this universe knows how to do its job except for us. And why is that? Because the tree, the lemon tree, produces the lemons perfectly year after year, never makes a mistake, never makes a cherry, never makes a coconut. It does so without thinking. It's just functioning according to its nature. So if we can just begin to embrace this not knowing or this, not thinking, we can do the same thing. We're no different